So it is something which is just going round and round in circles. And actually, if we could have our time again, I'd rather wish that we never got ourselves into this position in the first place.
So, what do you make of all this? There's Kate telling us she's watching the right wing rebel meeting, which is going on as I speak to you. There's no expectation they're going to force the government by defeating the government into toughening up the Rwanda plan. What will all this achieve? This spectacle of rebellion after rebellion and then resignation of two deputy party chairs. Where does it leave the party? Where does it leave the plan?
Well, I'm not sure where it leaves their plan. I mean, certainly from the One Nation side of things, we are happy with the way it's going. I mean, look, it's a bill which is pretty tough, and if we could find an alternative way of doing this, which didn't involve taking people and moving them off to be processed in Rwanda, we would do it. But I think none of us have come up with an alternative. But I think from the five families' point of view, in terms of their amendments and how they're going to vote a bit later, it leaves them in a rather peculiar position. I can't quite work out where they want to go on this. I mean, if they vote against, say, 32 or more vote against third reading, then the whole thing stops, and they will have been responsible for stopping any chance of aeroplanes going.
Right.
So I can't see that they're going to do that. You need, I think, more than 65 to abstain in order for the opposition parties to be able to block it. And I can't see that. I don't think there are 65 of them. I think the biggest number last night was 60. So they haven't got enough to abstain to be able to block it. So it's going to go through. It's got to go through the House of Lords, of course, and it leaves them in a very peculiar position. It's a fight which I can't quite see how anybody was going to win,
Mm.
and it's a strange one. I mean, look, I number many of the people on that side of the party as good friends, and I disagree with them on what they're doing now. But I hope we can get past this and get back together as a party, because at the end of the day, we want to get together and fight a general election. We're fighting it to win it.
Yeah, I mean, haven't you put your finger on it, Mark, by saying you can't see how anyone's going to win? Isn't the truth of this that if it goes the way we'd expect and the government, they see off the rebellions and the bill as it is stays intact, everybody loses because you've got a very visible rebellion, you've got a very visible split in the party, two high-profile members of the party, deputy chairs no less, have resigned because they think the plan can't work. So the plan is dented and tarnished. The Prime Minister's authority is dented and tarnished, and you've got a plan which already had doubts surrounding it. It's now got more.
Well, John, I wish I could come up with some brilliant answer which would push back on exactly what you said, but you're right. I mean, the bottom line is it is very difficult. Look, I mean, I'm very saddened by Lee Anderson sort of standing down as a vice chairman of the party. He's somebody I have an immense amount of respect for, actually. I think his journey to where he is today is a fascinating one, and I think he's a very valued member of the Conservative Party. But look, you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, there's this marching troops to the top of the hill, and they may have a fight, but actually, at the end of the day, it's going to be marching down.
Mm.
We have to get together with the party. There's no doubt about it. I mean, look, we do want to deal with this. Collectively, we recognise there's an issue with illegal immigration. There's a lot of pressure on resources. There's a pressure on resources. Kind of these hotels which are being used. There's the NHS resources. There's a whole load of costs in terms of the legal process, in terms of making sure these people who are seeking asylum get their cases properly heard. We have to resolve this, and it's very difficult. But as I say, the problem is we've got ourselves to a position where actually the government will technically win the vote tonight. It will go to the House of Lords. It'll be, I suspect, and we all kind of agree on this, that it's probably going to be beaten up to within an inch of its life by the House of Lords. It's going to come back to us. We're going to have to then have another look at it. It's going to take time. If it is amended by the House of Lords, we've got to then debate those amendments, and it's entirely possible that some of those amendments may be the tougher ones that my side of the party will be unhappy about. So it is something which is just going round and round in circles. And actually, if we could have our time again, I'd rather wish that we never got ourselves into this position in the first place. It may be imperfect if you are looking at it from this legal point of view. It may be uncomfortable if you're looking at it from a humanitarian point of view.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, just give it a whirl, kind of see how it gets on, try it out, and bear in mind, but we keep forgetting what the objective of this whole bill is. It's not to deport loads of people to Rwanda. It's actually to break the business model of the people traffickers. And those people traffickers, for between $5,000 and $10,000, are offering migrants free legal advice. They're offering free accommodation in three-star hotels in the UK for however long it takes. Actually, if the business model changes from that type of
Mm.
package tour to ending up in Rwanda, or a possibility of ending up in Rwanda, people are not going to pay their $5,000 or $10,000.
Yeah.
So that's the idea behind this. And I think we've got ourselves collectively into a crazy place on this. But
yeah, I mean, look, I mean, there's no denying there's a problem, a significant problem with the cross-channel boats. I can accept, Mark, that you genuinely, sincerely want to do something about that, and you are being commendably frank, which is something if you'll allow me, I want to commend, give you a round of applause. I mean, you said a moment ago, you think, well, part of you wishes you'd never got into this place, which I take to mean part of you, at least, wishes Boris Johnson had never come up with the Rwanda wheeze in the first place.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, look, there's all sorts of things that happened over the last few years that I slightly regret happening, but it's including Brexit, having been a staunch Remainer. But we've got to deal with the world as we find it. We can't get into the TARDIS and go back to 2015 and rewrite the election manifesto back then. So a lot of things have happened, and we are where we are. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, if I could write a script of how things are going to work out well, that script would involve actually all of us getting together as Conservatives in private meetings and having these debates in private. Look, everybody knows that policy making is an incredibly unattractive business, and that's why you try and do it, behind closed doors. It's rather like, I think, policy making and making sausages are the two things you should never watch happening in real life. So we can get on and do that and come up with a solution which we all agree with, without necessarily having these crazy arguments. We are actually united in the long-term objectives of all of this. We are united in our long-term objectives in terms of every sorts of things. We're united in net zero by 2050. We're united in building the economy. We're united in getting growth, reducing taxes, cutting waiting lists. All of the 5 pledges. All of us agree on that. It's just the path we take has got very confused and twisted and gnarled, and it's which we need to get over.
Mark,
but I think,
yeah, go on.
Well, I was going to say, I think we can. We do get on with each other. I as I say, genuinely count a number of people within the 5 families as good close friends, and we don't have to agree on every single point in order to be able to get along with each other. But we just need to make sure that we sit down and talk this through, and make sure that we are coming up with, as I say, an electable party which is unified and pointing in the same direction.
Mark, I mean, if it's any comfort, and I'm quite sure that it isn't, I've been watching politics very closely for very many years, and I've never known a time when policy making was a civilized business that went on entirely behind closed doors. I mean, is it your gut feeling? Obviously, one always hopes for the best, but is it your gut feeling that the process now, the broader political process, is about doing your best between now and election time and just hoping to limit the scale of defeat? Because victory, realistically, from where we sit, does not look attainable.
I think there can be a lot of outcomes. Look, I obviously take soundings in my own constituency, and I am absolutely 100% relentlessly focused on making sure that I deliver War Forest as a Conservative held seat at the next election, and every single one of us on all sides of the chamber will agree with that. Those in governments or those in the shadow positions are looking to put across an argument about why those particular parties will make a good government. And so we've still yet to see kind of what happens with all those television debates and manifesto publishing and all the rest of it. Look, my experience, this is going to be my 6th general election, and I've found, having fought 5, that you can only be sure of the outcome really on the last Saturday, when you're in that final few days before the polling day on the Thursday.
Yes.
And people are now, they're working out, they're looking at what they're doing next week. They're kind of sort of thinking, oh God, I've got to go and vote on Thursday. When am I going to do it? And actually, how am I going to do it? And that's the time when if you're in with a chance, or if it's looking pretty grim.
Yeah.
But look, bear in mind, John, we went into the 2017 general election under Theresa May, and I think we were 21 points ahead. And I think on the eve of the election, we were 1 point ahead. So things can change, and at the end of the day, people are aware there's an election coming up, but they're not focused on it, and they're not looking at the sort of minutiae of the manifestos. And I think we have to wait for that. But look, I'm not going to try and pretend it's not going to be difficult for us. I mean, clearly, but as I say, I don't think it's going to be the routing that people suggest.
All right, Mark, always good and interesting to talk to you. And I guess out of respect for the voters, it is worth making the point: nobody's voted yet, and you do not know until you know. Mark Garnier, Conservative MP, thank you for joining us. Now, coming up in a moment, two important bits of royal health news for you. We'll get the latest on the Princess of Wales and on King Charles. And next, I'll be talking to the boss of a senior civil service union about suggestions that government ministers may look at a way to compel civil servants to comply with getting deportation flights off the ground by codes of conduct, rules, guidance. Would that fly? Time now, 5:22. This is Drive on Times Radio. I'm John P.